Please explain the history of the IEP individual education program and how it's supposed to work in theory versus how it works in reality.
Great question. So when we talk about IEP, individual education plan, we're talking about the world of special education. Now, there's three things that automatically go together when we're dealing with IEP. It's a trinity. You can't have one without the others. They are the IEP, a learning disability classification, and special education. If you mention any one of those, the other two are automatically present. Special education is a program that gives the child an IEP because they have a learning disability. No learning disability, no IEP. If you have an IEP, you're in special ed. They all go together. I say that because sometimes you'll hear parents say, my child has an IEP, but he's not in special ed. If he has an IEP, he's in special ed on paper. The school's getting money for his education. He may not be assigned to a self-contained classroom. He may still be in a regular class, but he's still a special ed student. They're still getting paid for him. Here's the issue with special ed. If children did not receive a special ed subsidy, there would be no special ed. First of all, let's be clear. The only reason why New Jersey, Philly, Maryland, California, Texas, I don't care where you go. We can go down to the American islands. We can go down to St. Thomas and St. Croix. Same thing. The schools are putting black kids in special ed because they want that money. Let me give you an analogy. You a principal in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. 70% of your students qualify for free and reduced lunch. 60% come from single homes. None of them are reading on grade level. You know why they're not reading on grade level, because your teachers aren't teaching them. You know the feeder school didn't prepare them. So you have a decision. You're either going to tap into your Title I money and get those children the extra help that they need, or you're going to send them to the school psychologist. If you send them to the school psychologist, you're going to get a 100% increase in that child's funding. Special ed students are worth twice as much as the regular. So for example, let's take Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia school students probably get about, hypothetically, approximately $15,000 per student, right? Once they go in special ed, that child is worth almost 30 now. 30. It's a double your money. How many people you know, if they got a chance to double their money, are not going to double it? So sticking with you as the black principal, do you care about them kids? Because if you care about your students, you're going to make the teachers teach them. You're going to find the money in your budget to get them to after-school tutoring. Mind you, you already get Title I money. You already getting Title I. Title I funds comes out of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, Lyndon Baines Johnson, War on Poverty, 1965. This money is earmarked for children in low-income schools to improve what? Reading and math. What are most black kids in special ed for? Reading and math. So if you're getting Title I money to address reading and math, why are all these children with reading and math problems ending up in special ed where you are already given money to help them? You know why? Poor oversight of Title I spending and greed. I know I got my Title I money, but I'm going to use that for something else. I want this extra special ed money. It's about greed, and it is about neglect of black children. And here's the big thing. Our parents, brother. This whole system of special ed to prison, the whole special ed to prison pipeline is held together by uneducated. When I say uneducated, I'm not talking about academically. Uneducated about special education. So black parents don't understand that special ed is not a solution. I don't fault them for that, because the way they pitch it to you in a way that makes you feel like special ed is the best thing that ever happened to black children. He'll never get left back again. He'll get extra time. He'll get extra time on his tests. We're going to slow down the curriculum. We're going to give him his own learning plan, small group.
I got just one question real quick, right? I noticed I taught for 5 years in Philadelphia public school, right? And with the SPED kids, do they have to pass them, or do they pass them so they don't have to show their paperwork for failing to give them service?
Great question. Are schools required to promote special education students? The issue is this. The IEP team determines what the child is going to learn while they're in special ed. So who technically decides if that child gets retained or promoted? The IEP team. Who's on the IEP team? 4 required people: the parent, the principal or designee, the regular ed teacher, and the special ed teacher. These 4 people meet every year to do a new IEP. The IEP must be done annually because you move up in grade annually, right? So when you meet, you decide as a team, he needs to repeat. That's not likely to happen in special ed for 3 reasons. Legally, can they be retained? Yes. A special ed child can be retained. Absolutely. I've retained them before, but it's not likely to happen. Why? 3 reasons. Number 1, what is the job of the IEP team? To monitor progress. To monitor progress. So if this kid has an IEP and he still can't read or hasn't made reading progress to the point where you have to consider retaining him,
Justify your job.
where was the progress monitor? You got to justify your job. How, at the end of the year, are we talking about keeping them back when the whole purpose of the IEP is the pushing forward? That's number 1. Number 2, when the state and the feds come in to audit your books, if they see too many special ed kids being retained, it lets them know you're not really helping them. Number 3, the teacher who initially referred him for special ed, why did she want him tested in the first place? It wasn't for academics most of the time. It was for behavior. So you mean to tell me you're going to go right back to the same teacher who had him put in special ed and say, we're sorry, Mrs. Slovenberg, he's going to have to repeat 3rd grade. She's going to look at you like you're crazy. The reason I put him in special ed is to get him out my class. And you're telling me I'm stuck with him for another year. That's why special ed kids are rarely retained. And I think it's a problem, brother, because we have special ed kids being socially promoted who don't know anything, who go to school in states with a graduation examination. If you live in a state that has a graduation exam and you've been socially promoted all through special ed, when you get to 12th grade, you got to take that test. You can barely read. You know what it does? It automatically perpetuates the school to prison pipeline because you're going to drop out because you can't pass. You don't get a diploma. What is life going to be for that special ed kid who was socially promoted from first grade when he first got his IEP till 12th grade when he failed the graduation test? He don't have a diploma. He's on the street. Drugs, guns, the military not even going to take him if he can't get a GED. And a lot of these brothers we see on the corner selling dope, they were the special ed children who were not academically prepared for life, and they ended up on the street because they had nowhere else to go after they failed the graduation test.
And you made a great point. And one more thing I want to add, that they're spiritually demoralized. They don't feel they can accomplish anything. Because don't get it twisted. The kids sit there and know they haven't done anything.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Year after year.
Yes, sir. And they know that they're allowed to exist in an atmosphere of mediocrity. They know they don't have to perform. They know that they don't have to achieve. And the biggest side effect of special ed, and this is why I always tell parents, I tell teachers, never tell your child that they have this disability. Before you tell him he has ADHD, before you tell him he's reading disabled, before you tell her she's intellectually disabled, she thinks she can make it. Do you feel me? They do not see no difference between themselves and the next student. But the minute you tell them you're reading disabled, you emotionally disturbed, you just created a glass ceiling. It's a self-perpetuating prophecy that the child is now going to live up to. I was told I got a reading disability. I don't have to try. I don't have to study. I don't have to do homework. And so for me, the number one side effect of putting kids in special ed who don't need it is the low self-esteem, the low self-worth that it engenders in the child. And let us be clear, special ed kids have one of the highest dropout rates. Well, what do you expect? Nobody believes in me, not the teacher. And then once the other students in the school find out that that's the special ed class, it's over, because they're going to pick on me forever, to the point where I don't even want to show up to school because everybody know I'm special. The whole system is trifling, but the feds are not going to touch it because they know that's the only thing keeping some of these white schools. Okay? It's the only thing that has some of these white schools still allowing black kids to come. If they stop giving those white private schools, excuse me, not white private, because private schools don't get special ed money. If they stop giving these white public schools and white charter schools the prerogative to special educate and financially exploit these kids, there would be no desegregated schools in America. The special ed dollar is what's keeping these schools desegregated.